What's up, everyone? Welcome back. The 2017 NFL Draft is now finally over, so we have, for once, something real and tangible to talk about, and that's what we're going to do today. It won't really be a true film study episode, so it's not really branded under the film room. It's kind of more of a podcast feel to it. I don't have time to kind of sit and take weeks to do film study on every single team and kind of explain in depth all of my thoughts on all these individual picks. So I'm just going to kind of use this format to get all my thoughts out there, everything that I feel, my reactions to every single draft class and all these different picks, what I liked, what I didn't like, what I felt was too early, what I felt was too late. So kind of everything all in one spot for this one little podcast-y-ish type episode. So no B-roll, no editing of the audio, like I said, no script, just everything off the top of the dome. And I kind of want to start with my thoughts on this class as a whole. This was a very, very strong draft class. You kind of look at the cycles of the NFL draft. Every 3 years, there's always one really good draft class. So 2011 was monumental. I mean, probably the best pure infusion of talent in one draft class that the NFL has seen in decades. And you can kind of go down the list of that whole first round, even into in the fifth round. I mean, Richard Sherman was a fifth rounder in that class. Chris Harris was undrafted in that class. I mean, 2011 was something special. And it kind of, hit a lull. 2013 was probably the low point in the last decade or so in terms of overall class talent. But then it spiked back up with 2014, again on that 3-year cycle where you had Jadeveon Clowney at the top, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, all of three of the wide receivers. You had Odell, you had Mike Evans, Sammy Watkins was in that class. I mean, the fact that Sammy Watkins isn't even the best receiver in that class says something, because when Sammy Watkins is healthy, he's pretty damn good. And then it kind of hit a lull again. There's some pretty good talent in 2015 and 2016. And then the 3-year cycle, again, 2017, just massive, massive amounts of talent. Kind of headlined by the running backs and the tight ends. There was good edge players. There was absolutely no depth on the offensive line, but in terms of the top of the offensive line, it wasn't bad. I felt 3 first round quality tackles. Only 2 of them went in the first round. I thought the best one went in the second round at Cam Robinson. The quarterbacks, I didn't feel like there was any headliners in this class. I felt like everybody was, other than Deshaun Kaiser, I felt like everybody was a day 2 pick. Deshaun Kaiser was the only one that I graded as a first-round pick, and I didn't even think he was ready to start. And ironically enough, he's the only one out of the top 4 that went on day 2. Everybody else that I had a day 2 grade on went in day 1. So I'm kind of seeing things the opposite of the real NFL teams here. But yeah, quarterback wasn't bad. Definitely not as bad as 2013, like some people were speculating. I felt like there are definitely several quarterbacks in this class that I feel like can be starters. A few that I think have the chance to be good starters, but there wasn't. That Andrew Luck, that Jameis Winston, where you just know that no matter what, they're going to be a good quarterback. But yeah, there's plenty of other talent in this class. I mean, defensive back was loaded, probably the most loaded DB class that we've seen in a long time. Just overall, very, very, very strong class. So no matter what, I think every team came out with at least 1 or 2 players that I think is going to make them better. Some teams with the stronger classes, I felt like, had 4 or 5 players that can be immediate impact players on day 1, but pretty much all 32 teams came out with at least 1 or 2 guys that I think they're going to be really happy with. The big storyline, probably the biggest storyline of the whole weekend, was the trading up at the top of the first round for these 3 quarterbacks. The Bears giving up a 3, a 4, and next year's 3 to get Trubisky that was out of left field for me. It wasn't as bad of a trade as people are making it out to be, but I definitely would not have made it. Those round 3 and round 4, that's kind of where you build the meat of your team, finding those value players. And to their credit, they did get Eddie Jackson in round 4. And, like I said in my mock draft, I felt like Eddie Jackson was a first-round talent. That he's a very, very underrated safety. So getting him in round 4 kind of takes the sting out of giving up all that draft capital for Trubisky, but not entirely. It makes up for it, but not all the way. But I do think that they got at least a day 1 impact player in Eddie Jackson. So good for them. Adam Shaheen I really liked in round 2. I had him pegged as a round 2 tight end, and that's where he went. Tariq Cohen, I had pegged as a 4th round kind of scat back Darren Sproulsy type player, and he went in round 4. So, or at least I think he went in round 4. But so they got good value on those two players that can kind of build around Trubisky eventually whenever he takes the field, which, knowing Mike Glennon and his luck, probably will be somewhere in the 2017 season. I don't think he's ready to play, but he probably will play. I also like Jordan Morgan that they got as guard depth, I think in the 5th round. They kind of went all in on offense while getting that huge value on defense in Eddie Jackson. So it wasn't a bad draft for them. I really don't mind the trade up as much as other people do. I definitely would not have made it. I feel like they could have stayed at 3 and gotten Trubisky if they really wanted to, or I think they could have traded down and gotten Trubisky. I don't think everybody was as high on him in NFL circles as maybe people thought. The Bears obviously pulled the trigger, so we'll never know, but I don't think they had to trade up to get him. But, if he's your guy, he's your guy. So you got to go out and get him. You got to make a move to get a quarterback. So, that's exactly what Kansas City did. They felt like Mahomes was their guy, so they gave up a 1, a 3, and next year's 1 to go get Mahomes. Of the 3 trades, this was my least favorite because I had Mahomes pegged as a 4th round talent. So, giving up 2 first-round picks, including this year's first-round pick, giving up 2 first-round picks for, in my view, a 4th-round developmental quarterback, that is way too rich for my blood. At least Trubisky, you could argue that he was a high 2nd-round talent, maybe bottom of the 1st-round talent if you really like his athleticism and his intangibles and all that. I don't see any argument for Pat Mahomes being a 1st-round pick. I just don't. He's got the arm for sure. He's an underrated athlete, definitely. Everybody says he's a great guy off the field, but if you can point to me an air raid quarterback coming out of college that has success in the NFL, that will be the first one, because I've never seen a pure air raid quarterback have immediate success in the NFL. Jared Goff, that's why I didn't think that he was worth the 1st overall pick last year. He came out of a not quite as chuck it all over the yard, but still pretty close. They call it the bear raid up at Cal. It's not NFL football. It's not anything close to NFL football. None of the air raid concepts translate to pro-style offenses. So Andy Reid is gambling purely on Pat Mahomes' arm talent. And he does have arm talent. My God, can he throw the rock? But the footwork, the release, the understanding of pro concepts, he is so far away from being ready. I don't think that he'll even be ready in 2 years. I think he's got to be 2 years on the bench, and then maybe he can play in year 3 at the absolute earliest. But I think Kansas City is kind of planning on Alex Smith being there for another 3 or 4 years, and then Mahomes taking over, because he will not be ready before then. Absolutely will not be ready. So, if Andy Reid believes that Mahomes is his guy and that he can teach him an entirely new way of playing quarterback, Reid's one of the few coaches in this league that I think might have a chance of being able to do that, because he's a very good quarterback coach. But I didn't really see the need for a trade up for that. I think they could have got him late in the 1st round. Or at the very least, let somebody else make the mistake of taking him in the top 10. That was just hard to swallow for me. The rest of their class wasn't bad. They got Tano Passignon, and at least I think that's how you pronounce it. I've never been able to pronounce it, but I have been able to spell it, and I've watched a lot of tape on him. I really like him as a depth rotational interior pass rusher. Huge ceiling for him. I think he can be really good next to Chris Jones as long as they develop him like they develop Chris Jones. Kareem Hunt, I like as that high upside depth at running back. They needed help at running back, and I think Hunt has a chance to become a starter this year, to be honest, because even though Charkandrick West has done some good things, Hunt, to me, is a more complete back. I think he runs between the tackles better. He doesn't have quite the edge speed of West, but I think in terms of being able to do more than just outside zone, I think Hunt can do more than just outside zone, and he catches the football pretty well too. So I like that pick. I think they got him in the 3rd round. Not as big of a fan, like I said, of their overall haul as Chicago. I don't think their values in the 2nd and 3rd round offset the Mahomes trade as much as Chicago's values offset the Trubisky trade. But, who knows? If Mahomes is your guy, if you want a quarterback, you have to spend whatever you need to spend to go get him. So if they believe in him, good on them, I guess. I wouldn't have done it, but whatever. And then there was a third trade, which I felt was the most fair trade of all in terms of the top three quarterbacks, and that was the Texans giving up a one. It was this year's one, next year's one, and essentially next year's second-round pick if we take the Brock Osweiler thing into account. And what they got back was Deshaun Watson. They got back a fourth-round pick this year, and they got back essentially getting Osweiler's huge albatross of a contract off the books. So they got back cap space. It's kind of a new, almost like an NBA or MLB type of trade where you're trading away picks to get back money. And that cap space can roll over next year when they're going to be re-signing DeAndre Hopkins and Jadeveon Clowney to huge, huge second contracts. Jadeveon Clowney's going to get paid a ton of money. Just a truckload of money. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to get probably $16 to $17 million a year. If Olivier Vernon got the deal that he got, Jadeveon Clowney's going to get that and possibly even more. DeAndre Hopkins is going to get paid like a top three receiver. Regardless of the down year he had last year, he's going to get paid like a top tier receiver. So they need that money potentially more than they need that pick. So it makes sense to me. And they did get that fourth round pick back that they used on Carlos Watkins, who's kind of that high upside interior pass rusher. They can kind of rotate in. He's very good friends with DJ Reader, who's currently the Texans starting nose tackle now that Vince Wilfork is retired. So, kind of a familiar face in the defensive line. They worked really well together at Clemson. Reader's kind of that strong point of attack run stopper, and Watkins was the one gapping knife into the backfield pass rusher. So I really like that pick. It's kind of a rotational interior pass rusher. You can never really have enough of them. And the Texans' defensive line is loaded, but if J.J. Watt gets hurt again, it doesn't hurt to have depth. So I'm all on board with that pick. And of course, the elephant in the room, they got Deshaun Watson. I had a high second-round pick grade on Deshaun Watson, and I didn't put him in my first-round mock draft for a reason. I didn't feel like he was worthy of a first-round pick. But the thing that people don't really understand is just because you have a second-round pick on a quarterback does not preclude them from being successful. It just means that they carry more inherent risk and they're less likely to reach that franchise quarterback status than a typical first-round pick at quarterback, or at least somebody that you have a first-round grade on. I look at him, and the reason why I had him as a second-round pick is because of the arm. He doesn't have Pat Mahomes' arm. The deep ball accuracy struggled because I felt like he didn't just have the ability to kind of flick it off his wrist and put it where he wanted to. He had to put his whole body into throwing downfield. And the more oomph you have to put in your throw, the less effortless it is, the harder it is to actually control where you're putting the ball. If you have to drive your entire body into the throw, it's kind of like a fastball pitcher. If you have to really strain yourself to hit 95 plus, you're going to be wild. The best closers and the best fastball pitchers in the league are the guys with the best arm because they can hit those top speeds while not straining themselves to the point where they have no control. Deshaun Watson, I felt, was straining himself on deep balls because he doesn't have quite the arm as these other quarterbacks, which then resulted in a lack of accuracy. Now, lucky for him, he had Mike Williams, who could kind of go up and get it and give him this huge catch radius, so it kind of gave him a margin for error. And he'll have the similar thing in DeAndre Hopkins, but that is why he struggled with deep ball accuracy. And you notice in short and intermediate throws, he was much more accurate. His placement was way better, and it's because he wasn't putting every ounce of his strength into the throw. He could focus more on placement than just getting the ball downfield in the first place. So to me, if you don't have the arm to make deep ball throws accurately, I'm going to knock you down. And that's exactly what I did for Watson. On top of that, he's coming from a system that doesn't really have a ton of pro-style concepts in it. They run a spread. It's not an air raid, so it's a little bit closer to the NFL than obviously what Texas Tech runs with Pat Mahomes. But it's still not what I would consider a pro-style system. That being said, there is a long laundry list of skill players coming out of Clemson these days, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins or Andre Ellington or Sammy Watkins or this year Mike Williams. And all these skill position players are coming out and they're digesting NFL playbooks just fine. They're working their way into the depth chart in day one just fine. So clearly the system is not so far away from current NFL spread concepts that they can't get on the field early. It's not an entirely different language. It'll take some time to learn, take some time to adapt to in terms of getting into Bill O'Brien's system, but it's not something that he can't do eventually. It's not going to take him 3 years to figure out an NFL playbook like it will from Pat Mahomes, at least in my opinion. So it's not as big of a concern as maybe people are making it out to be. I learned that lesson with Marcus Mariota a few years back. I felt like he was coming from a college spread, and he would have at least 2 years till he learned what the hell he was doing in the NFL, and he picked it up immediately. So clearly the spread game in college and all these kind of one-read offenses, if you have a good coach, you can work with it. You can teach a guy how to play in the NFL if they're coming out of these systems. It's not like it used to be. These guys are coming in and they're playing day one and they're having success. So I learned my lesson with Marcus Mariota, and I'm not going to ding these guys as much for coming out of spread systems as I maybe did a few years ago. Now, the thing I like about Watson, the reason why, despite not having the best arm, despite coming out of a system that's not entirely pro style, the reason why I liked him is because he's got everything else that you want in a franchise quarterback. The mobility, he's got leadership, he's got toughness. I mean, the intangibles are just off the charts. He's just an incredible person, incredible work ethic. And it's something you have to take into account when you're judging a quarterback, because at the end of the day, these are going to be the leaders of your team. So, there's lots of exceptionally talented quarterbacks that fall flat on their face in the pros because they have no poise, no leadership, and no willingness to stand tough in the pocket and take a hit. And Watson has all these. So as long as Bill O'Brien can get him to grasp the intricacies of his offense, and as long as the play calling favors his short and intermediate accuracy instead of his deep ball inaccuracy, he should be fine. I think he can be an Alex Smith type of quarterback, a quarterback who is good. You can win with him. He won't cost you the game, but you need to have a lot of talent around him so that he can take your team far. He's not a guy that I think elevates his team to play above a level that they are. I don't think he's a Derek Carr, obviously Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady. If you surround him with a lot of really good players, he can win you a championship. That's what Clemson did. They had talent all over the place, and he drove the bus, and he played tough, he played poised, and they won the game. So, again, if you give him the pieces around him, he can make it work, and you can win a Super Bowl. But I don't think he's a quarterback that will carry your team to a Super Bowl. Lucky for him in Houston, they have a ton of talent, and they just really need an Alex Smith type of quarterback. They don't need Aaron Rodgers. If they had Alex Smith last year, and I'm just being 100% honest here, I think they would have beat the Patriots. That defense was just dominating New England. And the only reason why they lost that game is because Brock Osweiler could not put points on the board. I think Deshaun Watson can put enough points on the board to make this Texans team, which is already a divisional playoff kind of caliber team, I think they can elevate them to a championship caliber team. Just by the pure fact that he's not going to make as many mistakes as Brock Osweiler. By the pure fact that he can make just enough throws to get your team in a spot where they can win. He can be your Alex Smith. And I think if you put Alex Smith on that Texans roster, you immediately look to them as one of the top probably 3 or 4 teams in the AFC. Just straight up honesty. If you put Alex Smith on that roster, they are a Super Bowl contender, and now they have a younger version of Alex Smith. So again, to me, I would not have taken him in the first round, but I can understand why they did, because they felt like they were getting a quarterback that would not cost them the game. Now, on top of Watson, the Texans also got Zach Cunningham in the second round. I had him, like I said in my mock draft, he's a slam dunk first round Mike linebacker. So getting him deep in the second round, the value of that pick kind of offsets the Watson trade a little bit, because I felt like they got a first round pick in the second round and they took a second round pick in the first round. So it's not as bad maybe as people were thinking it would be in terms of the trade value, because they got Cunningham in the second round. And then they also got Deontay Foreman in the third round, who I felt was a second round pick. So again, the value on day 2 offset the lack of value on day 1. And they also got Julian Davenport in round 4 to kind of be their developmental tackle of the future. because Derek Newton's hurt. Dwayne Brown's kind of getting towards the backside of his career. Davenport, to me, is not ready to play year one, but he's got so many good tools that if you develop him to play for 2018, I think he can be a pretty good tackle in this league. So overall, I'm pretty pleased with the Texans draft class as a Texans fan. The quarterback value wasn't the best, but they got value, the rest of the draft, so it kind of made up for it. And I'm okay with everything. And, if Deshaun Watson turns out to be Alex Smith, even just as good as present-day Alex Smith, just a quarterback who can get them into Super Bowl contention, he'll be worth 2 first-round picks, okay? He'll be worth that price. And maybe it's not as good of a value on draft day, but in 5 to 10 years, we might be looking back at that trade and saying that's the best thing that Rick Smith and Bill O'Brien ever did. So if there's the potential for those kind of results, I'm okay with it, all right? I'm okay with it. So on the other side, you got the teams that traded down. 49ers got a bunch of extra picks from the Bears, and they got Solomon Thomas, who they wanted anyway at number 2. So they got all that extra draft capital for free, still got the player they wanted for free, and then they used that draft capital to go back into the first round and get Reuben Foster, who they would have taken at number 3 if Solomon Thomas went to the Bears at number 2. So they got the number 2 and number 3 players on their board for nothing. I mean, that is spectacular. Absolutely spectacular. So good on John Lynch for in my opinion, kind of fleecing the Bears on that one and still getting the guys that he wanted. Foster at 31 might be one of the steals of the entire draft. I know he fell down the board because of his shoulder injury. There's some off-the-field concerns and all that. But he is a game-changing linebacker, like absolutely game-changing linebacker. A lot of people think of him almost like a Navarro Bowman type of player, and now he's going to play next to Navarro Bowman. That fast, aggressive, attacking inside linebacker that can just get downhill and disrupt plays. And he's got a really stout defensive line in front of him with DeForest Buckner, Arik Armstead, and now Solomon Thomas. They can all kind of stop the run and let him flow clean to the ball. And I'll tell you what, if you let Reuben Foster and Navarro Bowman flow clean to the ball, there's really not much that can be done to the middle of that defense. I mean, they are going to dominate, absolutely dominate run games with that front 7. So very, very good first round for John Lynch. And I kind of like what they did in the second and third day as well. They got C.J. Beathard in round 3, which is probably about where he should go. I had a 4th round grade on him, but late 3 to early 4th. I mean, it's really kind of comparable value. And then they got Joe Williams in the 4th round. And there's a Peter King article out there. He was embedded with the 49ers during this draft class that kind of shed new light on this class after I looked at the names initially. And the thing that I liked about it is that Lynch and Shanahan worked together. It wasn't just John Lynch taking players that he had on his board and said, okay, Kyle, go work with these guys, fit them into your team. John Lynch actually took the players that Shanahan wanted. He wanted Solomon Thomas. Okay, he wanted Reuben Foster. He wanted Joe Williams. That was the running back that he wanted. And even though Lynch didn't like him, he had him completely off the board. He called up Joe Williams. And he said, okay, I'm going to see why Kyle Shanahan wants this guy so much. He talked to him on the phone. They kind of talked through his off-the-field issues, why he quit on the team, became comfortable with him, and then he went out and he got the running back that his head coach wanted. Good general managers do that. They get C.J. Beathard because the coach wants him. They get Joe Williams because the coach wants him. They get all these players that the coaches want to work with because at the end of the day, they're the guys that are going to be spending 12 hours a day with these guys. During the season, the coaches are going to be with these players all day, every day for 6 months out of the year. So if I'm a general manager, my number one priority is to get players that my coaches actually want to work with. I feel like that was the downfall of the 49ers before is they had a general manager and a coach that completely disagreed on what players they were supposed to pick. Trent Baalke took bulky guys. And Jim Harbaugh. Excuse me, wrong Harbaugh, brother. But Jim Harbaugh, they did not see eye to eye on who they were bringing into their building, and it created a lot of tension, a lot of distrust, and the whole organization imploded on itself. You need to have a good relationship between your front office and your coaching staff. And to me, this draft was very indicative that they have a great relationship in that building between the front office and the coaches because they were working together to decide who was going to be on their football team. It's a very healthy environment in that building. For the first time in probably a few years. So fantastic job by John Lynch, not only to get the players that he wanted at a value, but to show that he's willing to do things the right way. He's willing to work with his coaches and to give them the guys they want. So I can't speak highly enough about everything that John Lynch did this draft. Just for a first-year GM, I mean, he's going to be around for a while. I can already tell. He's going to be around for a long time. Now, next team that traded down were the Bills. I think that they got a king's ransom from Mahomes, all things considered, in terms of where I valued him. Getting still a first-round pick in a loaded draft class, great for that. But then they got next year's first-round pick, which they can use as ammunition to go up and maybe kind of make a play for Sam Darnold. Maybe the kid from Wyoming. A lot of quarterbacks coming out in next year's class. So they got that extra ammo. They can move up and go get one next year if they don't like Tyrod Taylor this year. Great job. And I think they also got a third-round pick this year. Yeah, they got a third-round pick this year, and they packaged it with a second-rounder to go up and get Zay Jones at the top of the second round. I love Zay Jones. Absolutely love him. I think he's going to be a day-one starter for them. Excellent route runner, excellent hands, underrated speed. I think he can be just as good, if not better, than Robert Woods. So great pick. They need that solid number 2 kind of possession, move the chains guy, and that's exactly what Zay Jones can be. So phenomenal pick there. I like Tre'Davious White late in round 1. They're in a division with a lot of good slot receivers. You got Julian Edelman, you got Jarvis Landry. Unless you got a good nickel corner that can slow those guys down over the middle, you're going to lose 4 games every single year, guaranteed. Because Jarvis Landry and Julian Edelman can absolutely kill your defense if you do not have a good slot defender. So taking Tre'Davious White is a good counter to a few of the best players in that division that they're going to face every single year. So great pick, love him. Day 1 starter, probably a 10-year starter, and I think he's going to be a fixture in that Bills defense for a very long time. Oh, I like that they got Nate Peterman in the 5th round from Pitt. That's a good developmental quarterback. Again, if they don't like Tyrod Taylor next year, and if they can't use that ammunition to trade up and get a quarterback they do like, I think Nate Peterman has a chance to start in this league. I don't know if he'll be a good starter, but he does have a chance to start, so pretty good value in the 5th round. At the very worst, I think he can be a very high-quality backup, so for a 5th-round pick, you could do a lot worse than that. I realized that they had a lot of drama in that front office, kind of the opposite of San Francisco. Virtually everyone got fired the day after the draft. That sucks. It really sucks that kind of took place the way it did. But as an organization, in terms of the draft itself, not necessarily the firings, but the players they got on the team and the value they got for next year, I think that they did a very good job. So as much as I don't like the firings and how it was handled, the roster got better. So I commend them for that. And of course, the other team that traded down, you got the Browns, that they were sitting at 12, and they didn't like Deshaun Watson enough to take him there, so they traded out, got a whole bunch of picks from the Texans, a whole bunch of assets. The first and the second rounder next year are going to come in handy again if they want to make a play for some top-tier talent. They did take Deshaun Kaiser this year, so it kind of hedged their bets that they might not need to take a quarterback next year. But they could if they wanted to. Jimmy Clausen was a 2nd-round pick the year before. The Panthers took Cam Newton 1st overall. So it's not like there's no precedent for if you have a generational quarterback prospect, you take him. But if they want to, they have the ammo now that they can move over the draft board next year and take a guy they really like. So great job by them. Kind of weird that they passed on Malik Hooker at 12 overall. I mean, I thought he was going to be long gone by then. He fits their scheme perfectly. But, when they traded out with Houston, they did go down to 25, and they still managed to get Jabril Peppers. So not the safety that I thought they would take, but still a really good safety. I did an episode on him kind of breaking down his role at Michigan, and it's a very similar role to how he's going to play in Greg Williams' defense. So I think he's going to be an impact player, definitely on special teams, maybe a little bit on offense. He can help out a defense that's kind of getting reloaded right before our eyes here. So I like that pick a lot at 25. Obviously, they got Myles Garrett, number 1 best player on the board for pretty much everybody. He's going to be a franchise pass rusher. So you get a franchise pass rusher, potentially a franchise quarterback in the 2nd round with Deshaun Kaiser, who I thought have a lot of tools to develop. You get a franchise safety / corner / linebacker in Jabril Peppers. Oh, and then they traded back into the first round again and got David Njoku, who's a very, very, very high upside tight end, just a yards after catch monster. So those 3 first-round picks were excellent. The second-round value for Kaiser was excellent, and they got a bunch of assets for next year. So, the Browns killed this draft just from the first 2 rounds alone. They killed this draft. They very, very, very strong 2 days for them. Lots of high upside potential corner pieces for their entire team for the next 10 years. So great job by Sashi Brown and Hugh Jackson. Just very, very, very strong first 4 picks. And speaking of good drafts, a team that I really liked that got value in the first round and all the way through the 5th round was the Chargers. Mike Williams, 7 overall. I was convinced that they were taking Malik Hooker at 7. But to get Mike Williams there, even though they passed on Hooker, who I had higher on the board, Mike Williams is a franchise number 1, no doubt, wide receiver. Best receiver in this class to me, not even close. I know this is kind of sacrilege, but to me, he's a better prospect coming out of Clemson than DeAndre Hopkins was a few years back. So that shows you how high I am on him. I think he's going to be a phenomenal weapon for Phillip Rivers. If Keenan Allen stays healthy, they could have one of the best 1-2 punches in the league, no doubt. And they got weapons all over the place that don't include their number 1 and number 2 wide receivers too. Antonio Gates is still there. Hunter Henry's came on a lot as a rookie. This is going to be a pretty exciting offense. And, I think even better picks were what they did in round 2 and round 3. They got Forrest Lamp and Dan Feeney, my top 2 guards in this class. And getting them on day 2 as a package deal, I have no idea how they pulled that off. I really don't. I wish I do, because that's just phenomenal. Forrest Lamp to me is a future all-pro at guard. I absolutely love him on tape. I think he's going to be a fixture on that line for a long time. And Dan Feeney, while he's not graded as high to me as Lamp, I also had him going in the first round. Great pass protector. He played right tackle last year in Indiana, but he started his career at guard, blocking for Tevin Coleman. And, getting him, I think, as your left guard and Lamp as your right guard, that's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. The interior of their offensive line is going to be set for a decade. And then they got Desmond King in the 5th round. I kind of liked Malik Hooker at 7 because they needed free safety, but to get Desmond King as your free safety in the 5th round, that makes up for it. Absolutely, that makes up for it. I love Desmond King. Absolutely love Desmond King. I thought he was a day 2 pick. And getting him in the middle of day 3, again, I don't know how the Chargers managed to do this, but everybody that they wanted and everybody maybe that they didn't even expect would be there just kept falling into their laps. So fantastic job by the Chargers getting a whole ton of talent in this class. This is going to be, I think, one of their best classes maybe ever. When you think about it, just get 2 franchise guards, a franchise wide receiver, a franchise safety, at least potentially a franchise free safety. This is going to be a class that we look back on in probably 5 or 6 years and we say, how the hell did the rest of the league let this happen? So love everything that San Diego did. The Ravens, I think, also did a great job at kind of restocking their defense. Marlon Humphrey was way too early for me at 16th overall, but they did get Tim Williams in the middle of the 3rd, which is fantastic value. That kind of made up for it to me. Tyus Bowser and Chris Wormley are both great picks in the 2nd and 3rd round, and I like the 2 guards they grabbed as developmental depth in round 4 and 5. Altogether, a very solid kind of meat and potatoes kind of class for the Ravens. They needed to replenish their depth on both sides of the line, and that's exactly what they did. So very good haul for them. Even though I wasn't super enthusiastic about the Humphrey pick, they got value everywhere else, so it kind of made up for it. Panthers, man, Carolina, did they have a really nice class. Christian McCaffrey, kind of a similar thing to Humphrey, a little rich from my blood and in the top 8. But he's also one of the few prospects in this class that you can almost guarantee will not be an outright bust. So getting that kind of safe, secure pick in the top 10 is pretty understandable. If you just want to make sure that no matter what, you're getting a good player, regardless of position or role, you could do a lot worse than Christian McCaffrey. Curtis Samuel, to me, another great value in the 2nd round. I had a 1st round grade on him. He's a very similar player to Christian McCaffrey, a little bit faster, and also kind of a different position. He's going to be more wide receiver centric, whereas Christian McCaffrey is more running back centric. But again, 1st round talent is 1st round talent. He can do everything for your offense. They're making it clear with those two picks that they just want playmakers and they want weapons in space, regardless of position. They want guys that can kind of flex all over the field, play a little bit of running back, play a little bit of receiver, and just make plays. Especially after the catch, they just want guys that can just make plays. So it's kind of a different direction for their offense. They've been playing with those big receivers for so long, but it's a welcome change. I think they'll mix in with the big receiver lineup and do a lot of good things for Cam Newton. So I approve of those first two picks, and I'm pretty sure that Cam Newton does too. Taylor Moton in the late second after a trade up with New England. I like that value a lot. He's one of the few tackles that I would feel comfortable taking in the second round. So getting him is kind of the developmental right tackle of the future. I don't know if he'll play immediately, but I do think that he'll get on the field eventually in 2017. So I do really like that pick. I love the Deshaun Hall pick in the third round, as long as his shoulder holds up. And that was the concern with him. But he's got massive potential as a 4-3 end if he stays healthy. And honestly, those shoulder problems were the only thing holding him back from being a top 50 pick to me. So getting him in the third is great value. If he stays healthy, he's going to be a monster for them. Love that pick. They also got Elbert in round 5 to kind of be their new nickelback. So overall, Carolina got better on both sides of the ball, and they got depth at positions of need and added immediate impact players that can help out Cam Newton. So overall, very good class for them. Loved what they did. I also love what the Dallas Cowboys did, at least potentially love what they did, pending the Jordan Lewis legal problem. They got Taco Charlton in the first round at a value. I did not expect him to be there for Dallas. I think he's going to be a very good defensive end under Rod Marinelli. One of the best possible situations that he could have fallen into, because Marinelli is a great motivator. He's a great teacher of technique. He'll get every ounce of potential out of Taco Charlton. And if he does get every ounce of potential out of Taco Charlton, you're looking at a perennial Pro Bowl caliber defensive end. So very good pick by them at the back half of the first round. They got Chidobe Awuzie in round 2. Love him at corner. They were very thin at corner, so getting him there, great pick. Jordan Lewis, I felt like he was probably a first-round corner on tape, one of the better slot corner prospects in this class, but he fell down to the third because of that domestic violence issue. I haven't read up a ton about it, so I'm not super sure how comfortable the Cowboys were feeling with him. Clearly, they felt comfortable enough to take him in the third round. I have no idea what's going to happen with his case. And if he is guilty on all counts, he probably should not have been drafted. But clearly Dallas felt like he was in a situation where they felt comfortable taking him in round 3. So on the field in particular, I think he's a very good corner, very good value for them. I just kind of hope that his off the field stuff does not follow him for the rest of his career. I hope he straightens his life out and just kind of becomes a better person on and off the field. That's all I can really do is that hope that these players improve themselves, both professionally and as people. So Brian Switzer in round 4, carbon copy of Cole Beasley. And I think they took Switzer because if Cole Beasley got hurt, they don't really have somebody that can step in immediately and replace him. So, with Beasley being such a huge portion of their offense, especially with Dak Prescott loving to throw to him, getting a guy who can step in and be a Cole Beasley type of player if Beasley goes down, this is, to me, another investment in Dak Prescott, in making sure that he doesn't lose that presence in the slot if one guy goes down. Because if that one guy goes down and they lose that presence in the slot, it completely changes their offense. So this is protecting their quarterback, and I like the move. They got Noah Brown in round 7, who's kind of that go up and get it, box you out kind of receiver. Not the most physically gifted guy, not the best route runner, but if you throw him a jump ball, he could probably come down with it. So I'm all right with that pick. Good depth behind Dez Bryant. The Jaguars, man, kind of switching gears here away from Dallas and the NFC. The Jaguars, I loved what they did in rounds 1 and 2. I predicted for a long time that they go Leonard Fournette, and they did. But I did not predict at all that Cam Robinson would be sitting there in round 2. I mean, that to me is just ridiculous. Not only that he went after Ryan Ramczyk and Garrett Bowles, but to go in round 2? I mean, I can't believe that Jacksonville got that good of a value. So Brandon Elbert right now is slated to be the left tackle. He's holding out. But if he continues to hold out, they do have Cam Robinson that can play left tackle on day 1. But if he's playing right tackle, even better, because that means they've got a good tackle tandem. If they wanted to play guard, he can play guard. He can play all 4 positions other than center on that line. So very good value for them. He fits exactly what they want to do, which is run the ball with physicality, blow people off the line of scrimmage, and let Fournette be the offense. So he definitely fits everything that they want to turn their offense into. Love that pick. Not a huge fan of Smoot and Westbrook in rounds 3 and 4, particularly, again, Westbrook, the off-the-field issues, the domestic violence. I feel like they probably could have gotten him later because there were several teams that had him off the board entirely. But just like with Dallas, clearly Jacksonville felt comfortable enough with the situation to take him there. And to me, if you put Westbrook in that receiving court, just from a pure on-the-field perspective, if you put Westbrook in that receiving court, Blake Bortles now has 0 excuses. 0 excuses. Okay, they got him a franchise running back. He's got a loaded receiving core. They just drafted a very high upside offensive lineman that can play either left or right tackle or left or right guard. Protection's going to be better. Running game's going to be better. Receiving core is going to be better. There's no excuses anymore. He has to play better. This defense is already very good. The only thing holding them back from making the playoffs is Blake Bortles. So either he plays better now or he's off the team, period. I'm tired of having this caliber of a roster held back by just terrible horseshit quarterback play, to be honest. So this is the year for Blake Bortles. Either he gets it together or he's done. That's it. Round 6. I just want to touch on this pick real quick, getting off the Bortles thing. They took a fullback, a 260-pound fullback that's only 5'10", named Marquez Williams from Miami. This dude is a dump truck. And it tells you all you need to know about the direction of the team, which, again, is they're doing everything they can to make life easier for Bortles. They're going to run ISOs all day long behind Williams and Cam Robinson. They're going to blow people off the ball. They're going to give Leonard Fournette the rock 25 times a game. And as long as Bortles can play well enough to not screw that up, they're going to be a very good football team. He's been holding them back for long enough that now they're just saying, all right, take the ball out of his hands. Let him just throw off a play action. Let him not be the sole source of offense on this team because he can't do that. Okay, he can't be the sole source of offense on this team. Now it's going to be Leonard Fournette. So the Jaguars have a very high ceiling as a team in 2017. And if they hit that ceiling, the AFC South is going to be really interesting because the Texans are now a very good team that potentially has their quarterback of the future. And the Jaguars are a very good team that now has their running game of the future. So I think week 1, we're going to find out a lot about these two teams because they're playing each other to open the season. And we could be looking at them as 2 of the best teams in the AFC South, as the 2 best teams in the AFC South, potentially 2 of the better teams competing for a playoff spot in the wild card. So, that week 1 game is very important for both these squads, and I'm really looking forward to it. How about the Saints? A few picks later, they managed to get Marshawn Lattimore at number 11. I didn't expect him to be there at 11, and so they got a slam dunk cornerback 1. As long as he's healthy, he can be their best corner, from day 1, the moment he steps in the building. Love that pick. Ryan Ramczyk fell all the way to 32, but again, did not see that happening with all these teams that needed offensive tackle. So getting him at 32, great value. Fills out their offensive line depth and probably replace Zach Strief long-term on the right side. Not super enthusiastic about the Marcus Williams pick in the 2nd round, but they did get Alvin Kamara in the early 3rd on a trade up with the Niners, so that's great value for them. I think Alvin Kamara can be kind of that Reggie Bush 70, 80 catch a year kind of running back. They've missed that element in their offense ever since they let Darren Sproles go. So I love that pick for them. I think Kamara is going to be extremely productive in that offense, even as a rookie. So great value for that. Alex Anzalone, really good linebacker from Florida, just could never stay healthy. So 3rd round was right for him. I think if he was healthy consistently in his career, he probably could have been a high 2nd round pick, maybe close to a 1st round pick, but definitely in that high 2nd round sweet spot. So getting him in the 3rd is pretty good value as long as he stays healthy. So overall, they addressed needs. They got depth at positions that they did not expect to get depth at, but they took the opportunity when it was there. A lot of high upside for this class. I love everything they did. So good job by the Saints. I don't know if they're going to compete for a division title next year, but with Drew Brees, anything's possible, and they give him a little bit of help. So love that class. On the flip side of the coin, there were a couple draft classes that I just really was not a fan of. Miami for starters, Charles Harris. They had Taco Charlton on the board, and they passed on him for Charles Harris, who to me is just not a first-round defensive end, let alone as high as 22 overall. I mean, I didn't see any physical traits whatsoever that led me to believe he's a franchise pass rusher. Just none. He doesn't have the length. He doesn't have the first step. He doesn't have the bend. Definitely doesn't have the power. I don't get it. I don't get this pick at all, and why they chose him over Taco, I will never know. And I think in a couple years, when you see what Rod Marinelli turns Taco into down in Dallas, I think more people are going to recognize that this was kind of a missed pick to me. Harris is really more of a rotational end, not a starting end, and I would not spend a 22nd overall pick on a guy who I think is a rotational pass rusher. So that's a miss for me. Raekwon McMillan, I think, was a good pick in a vacuum. He fits exactly what they need there in the second round. I think I had a second round grade on him, so I love that pick. But the fact that they took him before Zach Cunningham is just really weird to me. Cunningham, I feel, is a better Mike linebacker prospect than McMillan. So, again, their values were kind of flipped for me. I don't really get that pick. They did manage to get Isaac Asiata in the 5th round and Isaiah Ford in the 7th, but those values do not make up for passing on Taco for Harris and passing on Cunningham for McMillan. To me, those two picks are just unjustifiable. So, not a huge fan of the Dolphins draft class. It's not like they're drafting busts, but I don't agree with the value. I don't agree with the valuation of these players that they took. So, I don't know. What can I say? Similarly, I thought the Bengals reached really hard on a couple picks in the first 2 rounds. John Ross at 9th overall, Joe Mixon at, I think, 48 or 49. He was definitely a top 50 pick. To me, I recognize these guys are supreme talents. They're top 15 to 20 talents, but I did not have either one of them in my first round mock for a reason. John Ross can't stay healthy. I get that he runs a 4.22, and they drafted him for one reason and one reason only, and that's to take away safeties from AJ Green. Because when AJ Green was playing alone last year, safeties were doubling him on every play. He was not as effective as he has been in years past because he was double covered on literally every single play. So John Ross has the speed to kind of, take away safeties from Green's side of the field, or at the very least have safeties kind of cheat towards him and kind of give Green more windows to work downfield. This pick was entirely for that reason. It was just to make AJ Green's life easier. But I don't think that you needed to spend a 9th overall pick on him. Taking a guy with that much medical risk in the top 10, that's really rich to me. I just can't justify that to myself. If it was maybe trading up in the back half of the first round, I'd understand it. Definitely the top half of the second round is kind of the sweet spot for him in my valuation. But, oh, man, I get it. He's super talented, very fast, great route runner, pretty decent pair of hands. But the best ability you can have as a player is availability. And up until this past year, John Ross just was not available ever. And I'm not entirely sure that he's going to be available in the pros. So, I hope it works out for them because he's a great talent when he's on the field. But, man, passing on O.J. Howard, who can do essentially the same thing in terms of taking away safeties, and who is going to be on the field. O.J. Howard is very, very durable. Passing on him for John Ross, that's really rich for me. In a similar vein, Joe Mixon, again, supreme talent, but the off-the-field stuff, you took him off a lot of teams' boards. A lot of teams are just completely ignoring him as a prospect. So taking him in the second round, I felt was very unnecessary. I felt like he would have been available probably at least 1 or 2 rounds later. And I know everybody kind of says, oh, it only takes one team to pull the trigger. Yeah, the Bengals are that team. To me, they were competing against themselves to get Joe Mixon. I don't think anybody else was going to take him in round 2, especially after their pick. I don't think anybody was taking him in round 2. They definitely wouldn't be trading up for him just because the PR alone. Can you imagine the press saying, why would you trade up for this guy? No team wants to answer that question. The Bengals are the only team that is used to answering that question. They're the only ones that have the answer to that question because they do it every freaking year. they take somebody with questionable background. So, again, they're competing against themselves to get these guys with all these character red flags. I don't think they should have spent a top 50 pick on him. I think they could have got a different player with a better value. And then if you really, really want him, take him in the 3rd round, maybe in the 4th round. But there's a shitload of teams that just would not have drafted him at all. So I don't like that value at all. Great player, but too early for me. I think they did get great values at other points in the draft with Jordan Willis in the 3rd. They got Carl Lawson in the 4th, Ryan Glasgow, but all that was just overshadowed by the massive, massive reaches, in my opinion, with their first 2 picks. And you know what? I could sit here with egg on my face in a year as John Ross does exactly what they drafted him to be and is that kind of explosive deep threat in the passing game, and Joe Mixon dominates as their new starting running back. But, they're both talented enough to have that kind of success. In fact, just from a pure on-field perspective, I think both of them will be great assets to that team. But being a good player and being a good value at the draft position are 2 totally different conversations. And as of right now, I do not see them as values in the draft. So that's just my thoughts on Cincinnati. I'm sure there are a lot of Bengals fans that disagree, but that's just how I see it. But anyway, those were just a few of the teams that I wanted to highlight in this recap. These were some of the classes that really stood out to me, both on the positive and on the negative side. I don't have time to go through every team's draft, obviously, because I'd be sitting here recording this audio pretty much all day long. But if you want to talk about your team's draft class and I did not mention them here, just drop a comment below and I'll try to get back to you and give my thoughts on whatever players or teams you have questions on. And as usual, on the screen are the names of everyone who has donated to the channel in the past week to kind of keep this operation up and running. I'm sure some of them are Bengals or Dolphins fans, and that money's going to go away immediately after they watch this video. But honesty is the best policy, and if I was just throwing praise upon everyone for everything all the time, then what value would my opinion really have, right? But thank you to everyone who's donated. That kind of puts a button on the 2017 NFL Draft. Now, starting next week, I am going to return to doing true film room episodes, the ones that you guys are used to. But these are going to focus on NFL players as kind of a primer to the 2017 NFL season. Every single week, it'll be a new player or a new team or a new scheme or just something that I want to highlight within the NFL. So, something to look forward to, something to analyze for yourself when the 2017 season actually kicks off. So hopefully you guys enjoy those. Hopefully it'll help you with your fantasy teams. It'll help you understand your actual team. And I'm excited. I did a little bit last year. I'm going to do a lot this year. So just keep an eye out for that. Every single Thursday, new episode's going to release. And I think I'm going to start out with doing Jalen Ramsey versus DeAndre Hopkins. 2 very good young ball players. Hopkins is obviously a little bit more established, but Jalen Ramsey, I promise you, this time next year, is going to be seen as one of the premier corners in the NFL. These guys kind of have a budding rivalry going if you've been following their social media. They don't really like each other that much, and it shows on the field. I mean, they get after it. So it's a really fun matchup to watch. I'll be breaking that down next week, and hope you enjoy that. So until next Thursday, later.